Welcome to CareTalk, America's home for incisive debate about healthcare business and policy. I'm David Williams, president of Health Business Group.
And I'm John Driscoll, the CEO of CareCentrics. David, what questions do we have to answer this week for our audience?
Well, John, this is a funny one because you'd think that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, would have a leader at this point, but it's 8+ months into the Biden presidency, but nobody has been nominated to run the Food and Drug Administration. What do you think of that?
You're picking on Biden unnecessarily. I mean, come on. They only regulate all of food, all of drugs, all of devices. And it's not like we're in the middle of like a massive pandemic or anything. I mean, the whole approval of drugs and therapeutics, I mean, everything to do with this pandemic runs through the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, as does our food supply, which has been stressed at a lot of different levels. It's a little bit of a surprise, but whether you're talking about therapeutics, the drugs that the monoclonal antibodies and others that can help people who get sick get better fast, the vaccines themselves, the devices that deliver the vaccines. Oh yeah, and the testing that we're not doing, that we didn't approve, that the CDC bungled. All of those tests also run through the FDA, let alone all of these incredibly important, really truly life-changing oncology drugs, the new biologics, CRISPR, tobacco. I mean, just the remit of the Food and Drug Administration is huge. It's really odd that they don't have a leader.
John, as you're saying, all the things that are regulated by the FDA, it's something like $3 trillion worth of the economy. It's like 20.
Oh, I think it's more. I think it's more. It's all food, all drugs, all devices,
Okay.
and it's going to grow.
Well, I'm just quoting from them, but that's fine. But their budget is only $6 billion. It's actually less than 1% of the budget of the Defense Department, and interestingly, just over half of it is funded by the federal government, but 45% or so is actually paid by industry user fees. So it's a very different. I mean, imagine if the
Defense Department, if defense contractors had to pay to subsidize the staff at the Pentagon, I think they'd be very happy to do that.
I wasn't going to go that way, John, but yeah, but it's an interesting
Well,
budget. So
but think about it, David. That actually does make some sense. I mean, tobacco, which we know harms kids and adults and everyone, but is a personal choice. There should be user fees for those costs that they create um, to to regulate it in a safer way. The device companies, the J&Js and the large manufacturers, um, are making a lot of money off of these medical devices once they get into the market, to have to pay some element of an access fee to support the really critical research for safety and efficacy that the FDA does across all medical devices makes a ton of sense. I think that this massive industry, certainly with their massive margins, has the ability to invest a little bit and support the appropriate regulation and management of their development process. I mean, I don't think you should be sticking the average taxpayer with those costs when the different companies are the winners. I mean, where are you going with that one?
Well, John, it's about $10 per person that the FDA costs. It's not very much. I think that the background on the funding is that it was put in place so that the FDA would be able to hire more reviewers that would speed up the reviews. I think it's neither here nor there on that one. But why is it that the FDA doesn't have a head? They've got actually an acting director, acting commissioner, Janet Woodcock, who's been at FDA for a long time. And a lot of people thought that she was going to be the nominee, but that's not happening.
Well, I think the most important thing, David, is not to focus on the personnel. It's really to realize that this is effectively wartime from a pandemic perspective, and we've got a critical general that's not clearly in charge. And anyone who's acting, Janet Woodcock's a longtime FDA executive. She's very highly regarded. There's clearly some ambiguity about whether she's going to get the job, because otherwise you'd logically nominate her. But it's not like we don't have other candidates, but that job is a critical one. And I think there should be more public pressure to actually fill that job. I mean, one of the things that the United States government doesn't do well is provide quick and easy access to approvals for anything other than the absolute top jobs. And I don't know whether it's the politics at the White House or the politics in the Senate, but for whatever reason, we don't even have an announced nominee. And again, we're in the middle of war. It's just a public health war, and we need that seat filled.
John, let's give one tangible and a near-term example of why you need somebody running the FDA right now. So, on this topic of vaccine boosters, right? There's a lot of confusion and different opinions within the government. Typically, FDA would be really leading the way on that, but instead you've got the CDC and the NIH kind of stepping into that. NIH knows more about kind of like the basic science, but they don't know as much about drug development. CDC, but because Tony Fauci's there, NIH has been prominent. CDC, does the public health side of things, and FDA would usually be more prominent here. And with an acting person, you can't do it as well. And in fact, two of the leaders in the vaccines role are actually retiring from FDA because I think they feel they're being pushed around by the White House. So this is a challenge, and it's partly of the White
I,
House's
I,
own making.
you get really into this beltway back and forth and who cares about what and this agreement. This is, as we go through COVID, there will be more and more information. And I think the healthy debate about who gets a booster and when, what data is used. I actually think that the White House pushing um, the FDA or the CDC pushing back is actually a healthy sign of a democracy, of not just the will of the people, but of an open reflection of the ideas and data so that we get the right public health decision. I don't blame the acting for the back and forth on that decision, and I think people make retirement decisions for any number of reasons. But there's no question that we need a clear head of the FDA in place as soon as possible, because there's an entire organization of, I don't know how many people work in the FDA now, David.
18,000, John.
18,000, and they cover so many different areas. There's really important stuff going on with CRISPR and oncology research, cancer research, regulatory decisions on e-cigarettes that are coming right now. And without a leader, you can't organize that group to make a clear decision. The back and forth on the boosters, I think we have to give some room for the scientists to disagree about the data and argue it out so that we have some transparency around decisions, not have some sort of faux oracle like you telling
Yeah,
people what the decision is and not explaining the process.
a foracle, John.
And the process is going to be, and the process is by nature going to have some back and forth. But that's separate and above the question that this is a critical part of government. It has been since the passing of the bill in 1906. I mean, we
Yes, you
were,
remember it well, John.
led. It was a great year. I mean, I miss Teddy Roosevelt. But the beginning of the Republican progressive movement, which showed that government could be a partner to industry, regulate it, and keep food and drugs safe. We really, it's one of the foundational reasons why our drugs and devices are some of the most successful and broadly used in the world. And to not have a leader of that is not just gonna be a political problem about who gets appointed and what decision. It's really, it changes the speed and effectiveness of government to partner with healthcare, the healthcare industry, frankly, to drive and manage innovation in a way that's in the best interest of the American public. And it's embarrassing, honestly, that a president that really wants to reinforce the fact that government can work has not made a final appointment in a part of the government that really does work pretty effectively.
So, John, it's really important for all the people that are career officials at FDA and scientists there to have strong leadership. It's important for morale. I know you hate the inside the Beltway stuff, but I actually grew up inside the Beltways. And the son of the FDA commissioner at the time, Frank Young, was actually the co-captain of the wrestling team with my brother. And we saw actually a lot of tension between people who were working for
Where
the where's
this is way off piece.
yeah.
Where are we going here?
So the thing is, there was tension between the politically appointed leadership of FDA and other government agencies under Reagan administration, and certainly now with the people that were on the career and the career folks. And we saw that in our high school. Is my point. So I think we need actually a strong leader because the government employees are really being beaten down. It's everybody forgot, I guess, the government shutdown that was needlessly caused during the Trump administration. I think there may be another one that's coming. And we need somebody that's going to be strong. So, John, you do a lot of criticism of me here, and you say that you need a strong leader. So clearly, you're not nominating me for the FDA, and if nominated, I would not serve in any case, just to make that clear. But I mean, who do you have in mind?
Well, let's come up with our own short list. Vivek Murthy, the current Surgeon General, has deep experience as a clinician, and he was the Surgeon General in the prior administration. You could immediately probably put him in and appoint him. He's got obviously the support of the White House. I think he'd clearly have the White House's support, and having the White House's support would be great. Another logical one would be Scott Gottlieb, who's got a great book out on the pandemic and what we should do differently. He was a Trump appointee. It would be very hard for the Republicans to oppose him. And again, I think you could ask for any of these people, Margaret Hamburg, who served in the Obama administration, well regarded, both sides of the aisle, great bench scientist who was involved in HIV research, would work well probably with Dr. Fauci, who's deeply involved there. I think any of those three, someone who's in Washington in place, someone who might be able to be convinced to return to Washington in the case of Dr. Scott Gottlieb, or it probably still lives in Washington, Dr. Peggy Hamburg, any of them would be great. But I think what you want is someone who has experience in the job, is a noted clinical leader, and can immediately not learn on the job. We are, again, at war. It's a public health war, and we need a leader who is not going to have to, figure out their way to the bathroom for the first 6 months of the job, but has experience in DC, has a deep clinical background, and has the respect of not just the clinical side, but the political side, because I think that ultimately solving this pandemic and coming up with public health solutions is going to be as much of a political solution to get to align the different voices around a sensible public health policy as it is a clinical job. So I would go to the usual suspects, the people who've done the job, or the people who are already in the mix in Washington in a senior leadership position.
John, I know we're supposed to disagree on the show. I more or less agree with you. I'll add one more name to the list, Joshua Sharfstein, who was the deputy previously at FDA and he's in Maryland as the head of the Health and Human Services there. So that would be another one that could be good, assuming you're not available, John, because I know you're too modest for the role.
Josh,
Josh
would not be.
John, you worked at FDA. You did, weren't you like an intern there, like a coffee boy?
I was an entrepreneur in residence for the Obama administration, helping on advise on some new innovation tracks for the Device Bureau. But my brief experience with the FDA as a part-time appointee during the Obama administration just gave me a sense of the absolute pristine clinical and analytical talents of that department. But every department needs to be led, and I just hope they can pick. You can even nominate somebody else, David, if you'd like. But Josh Sharfstein would be great because he's very involved in the public health response in Maryland, which has actually done a pretty good job in and again, having been the deputy in the FDA, would actually know the complexity and the breadth and the reach of this incredible department.
All right, John. Well, I'll say in closing here, let's hope that FDA gets a permanent commissioner appointed soon, nominated soon, and that actually the government does not shut down and is able to continue along, because clearly we need the government to do its job if we are going to try to keep the pandemic under control, bring it down, manage it. I don't know.
And if the White House Office of Personnel needs ideas for nominations, they should call you, Dave.
Okay, I'll let them know. I'm not sure I want my phone number publicized. I'll be ringing off the hook, so to speak. In any case, this is David Williams, president of Health Business Group, unlisted phone number.
And I'm John Driscoll, the CEO of CareCentrix. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe.